Okay, so we're gonna do our top 10 movies we watched in 2021. Now, this list specifically is composed of movies we had never seen before, one or more of us. So it's not necessarily movies that came out in 2021. It would be a very short list. It's movies we saw for the first time during 2021. And because I'm a madman, I kept track of every single one on a giant 4-page spreadsheet. And maybe also we watched too many movies. Just because something didn't make our list doesn't mean it wasn't good. Maybe we didn't see it. Maybe we did see it and subjectively disagree with that assertion. So, haha. We're gonna start with honorable mentions. So these are the 10 films that came close to cracking the top 10.
Speed of Life.
Lucky.
The Man from Nowhere.
Host.
Black Sunday.
The Truman Show.
Terrified.
A Quiet Place, Part 2.
True Detective, Season 1.
Takashi Miike's First Love. Okay, so those were our honorable mentions. Without further ado, here's our top 10 movies we watched new to us in 2021.
Channel Zero, No End House.
So yeah, we discovered the series Channel Zero for the first time this year. Mm-hmm. This season in particular was just fantastic. They're based on like urban legends, but of the internet age, and then they take each one and expand it into a season of TV, and none of the seasons of the show have anything to do with each other. Zombie for Sale. You think you've seen everything a zombie movie can offer.
Yeah. And
then another one comes out and you're just like, whoa, okay. It's
so good.
Cute.
It's so cute.
It's very funny. It's very cheerful. It's just a good time. If you're sick of grimdark and gory zombie movies, then Zombie for Sale is your bag.
Yeah. Resha Sentai Tokyuger, One Punch Man Season 1.
Kaizoku Sentai Gokaiger, Exit Through the Gift Shop. So of those 4, you've got a documentary, a season of an anime, and then 2 seasons of Super Sentai, for some reason. It's been a year. Running through them really quickly. Exit Through the Gift Shop is a documentary about Banksy. Kind of.
Yeah.
It's also about people who are obsessed with Banksy.
It's something.
But it's also really funny and really meaningful and really fun.
A bit disheartening if you're an artist, honestly, but it's still really good.
It does expose just how meaningless the fine art scene is, which is always a good time.
Yay!
Tokyuger and Gokaiger are 2 different seasons of Super Sentai. You might know it as the Japanese show that Power Rangers cut all of the Japanese actors out of and then just kind of pretended like they came up with it. So this is the original show from that.
It's still going.
It's still going to this day, started in the 70s, still going strong. Tokyuger is a team made up of maybe the souls of dead kids. We're not quite sure. You'll find out there's more to it. And Gokaiger is about space pirates, and we like some space pirates.
And the kids like trains. You didn't say anything about how the kids like trains.
Okay, so, we've had our documentary for the adults. We've had our kids show for the kids. And One Punch Man is like for older teens. It's kind of commenting on just how depressing and meaningless superhero stories can be for the superheroes, but also addressing it in a very sarcastic and fun way. Don't recommend it for everyone, but if you can handle a lot, it's a lot. So enjoy.
It's a fun time.
In 7th place, we have My Brain Being a Goldfish. The Iron Giant, Mirai Sentai Time Ranger, and Gonjiam Haunted Asylum. 3 slightly different movies / shows.
For some reason, I wasn't expecting Haunted Asylum to be so high.
It was very good.
It was very good.
It's less about it being amazing for either one of us and more about it being great for both of us, because if one of us is not into it and the other loves something, those scores average out to kind of
true.
Bring it down. But if we both really enjoyed something, then that puts it further on the list. So, great. Gonjiam Haunted Asylum is essentially a found footage movie that really isn't that gory, but it is terrifying. It's a Korean film. Again, Korea is doing quite well on our list this year. About a group of teenagers who are like ghost hunters, and they have a ghost hunter show, and they go to a haunted asylum to find ghosts, and they find them. It's very frightening. There you go.
Yeah, it's real good.
It's all in the execution. It doesn't sound like it's a good time, but They do a good job of making these characters individual and unique, and you care about them, as well as not over-explaining the threat, but allowing it to be very terrifying, while at the same time not like anything you've ever seen before.
Yeah. Well, we've seen some other like wannabe found footage movies that were either not good or enjoyable, but not like super good and terrifying. And this one kind of hit both. And it was like we were going in expecting to be fine, but it really exceeded our expectations.
Yeah, there are a lot of terrible found footage movies out there. But I think we also do our research before we watch a movie.
That's true.
So sometimes we're caught in, trust me, we have a complete list of movies we did not like this year. That's coming out later. We normally do our due diligence, and so normally I think we end up liking a movie more often than we don't.
Yeah.
Time Ranger is another Super Sentai show, and it's about basically time rangers. They go back in time and they are rangers and they stop monsters, and it's really fun and really good.
Millennium.
Yeah, it's early millennium.
2000,
and the strength of this show is in its characters. They're all very unique and very interesting, and they carry the show.
They're great. Iron Giant. It's wonderful.
It's a great movie.
Really great movie. We've had a very specific, almost like a taste this year. So the fact that it didn't fit into that like the type of movies that we've been so in love with, it's just like, yeah, I really like it, but not as much as those other two.
I think it's made by Brad Bird before he was corrupted by Pixar. It's a response to, I believe, his sister being killed. And as such, the movie is a very meditative. There's nothing really like it that I've seen anyway. It's very unique. It's set in the 50s. It's got that sort of pop sci-fi vibe. So we liked it enough to put it in 7th place.
Alright. The Mitchells versus the Machines. The Enfield Haunting. Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day. Channel Zero Season 4, The Dream Door. And Boys from County Hell.
Boys from County Hell is, I believe, an Irish movie about vampires. It is funny, it's poignant, it gets real, emotionally sad, but then it's able to balance that sincerity with laugh out loud comedy. So it also has one of the coolest vampires I've seen on film.
Yeah.
Channel Zero Season 4. Once again, Channel Zero manages to get 2 places in our top 10 list this year. Dream Door is about a couple trying to deal with past trauma in a way that is starting to manifest in the real world in very terrifying and ghostly ways. And it's super good. Has one of the best villainous, heroic monsters that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day is a romantic comedy set in, is it World War I or World War II?
I don't, too.
It's delightful, it's hilarious, and it does have moments of genuine emotion to it as well.
Frances McDormand.
Frances McDormand is always a win.
Yes.
If she is in a movie, then I will probably enjoy the movie because of her. Just runs away with it as usual.
Amy Adams in this movie in particular, though, also really runs away with it.
Yeah.
They kind of all do. Lee Pace, I love him. So.
The Enfield Haunting is a short miniseries that covers the story of a haunting. You might know this specific haunting from The Conjuring 2, the very popular film. What The Conjuring did was they just kind of slapped Ed and Lorraine Warren into this story, which in real life they weren't even involved. This takes the true events, and makes much more of a compelling, intimate character study out of it. I found it deeply moving, quite spooky as well. Absolutely worth seeing. The Mitchells versus the Machines. I work for the studio that made it, but it's not a conflict of interest because I didn't work on this particular movie. Ha 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 ha. It's great. It's good.
Great. Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, you should see it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how old you are. You're a kid, it's a good time. You're a teenager, so lit, yo, fam.
No.
If you're an adult, it's just hilarious. So yeah, you're gonna have a good time with this one.
True.
The Silence of the Lambs. Now, you may not have heard of this little horror film, but it's an indie darling. No, I'm just kidding. Everyone knows this movie. It won Best Picture. Silence of the Lambs is good stuff. Rewatch it. Still good.
You've seen it before.
Yeah.
I think I had seen portions at some point in my life.
But this was your first,
This
full.
was my first official watching ever. It was great. The Suicide Squad. Horror Noir, A History of Black Horror.
So Horror Noir, A History of Black Horror is a documentary that just kind of chronicles how black people have been depicted in horror movies throughout the ages. What it means, where we can do better. Like, I didn't know most of this stuff as a pasty mayonnaise man, so it was really nice to be walked through it. The Suicide Squad is a attempt at redeeming the last attempt at Suicide Squad. So a movie came out, 2016 maybe, called Suicide Squad. Not so good, and so DC was like, hey, who's the only Marvel director making interesting movies? Oh, it's James Gunn. Well, why don't you attempt to make a good The Suicide Squad movie? And James Gunn's like, okay, and he did. And it was one of the best movies of the year. It is what you would expect from a James Gunn movie. Ridiculously violent, unapologetically progressive, ridiculously fun characters, and laugh out loud and cringe out loud moments, which is a thing. Yeah, it's a good time. It's a fantastic movie. To me, it's the perfect sequel to Birds of Prey, the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn.
Was it really fantabulous?
Yes.
Huh.
I mean, the movie was fantabulous.
That's true. I just
But
call
also
it
the
Birds
title.
of Prey because it's a very long name.
I think DC puts out much worse movies on average than Marvel does, but when they make a good one, it's also much more interesting than the movies Marvel's pumping out. So, wins all around. Hunt for the Wilder People. This movie is directed by
Taika Waititi.
It's kind of like a tragicomedy where some very tragic things happen, and a foster kid and one of his guardians find themselves lost in the wilderness, having to come to terms with their situation and each other. It rips your heart out and it makes you laugh, so...
Taika Waititi is very good at that.
It really is. Oh my goodness.
The Power.
Second place. The Power is about a nurse starting a job at a hospital during a time in UK's history when they were experiencing electrical blackouts every night, and that's immediately spooky. But then also there are some really horrible things going on at this hospital, and maybe some otherworldly presences that she comes across. So if you're afraid of the dark, this is probably a good movie for you. We really liked this movie because it talks about a very difficult subject matter, but I think it does it in a very sensitive and non-exploitative way.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. It definitely might be the type of movie that might trigger some people, so I would look into it a little bit beforehand, but don't deep dive because you don't want to get any spoilers. But yeah, it's a really good movie, and it handles the specific topic at hand very well. Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, La Llorona, and 12 Angry Men.
Okay, so those were our favorites out of the entire year. Do you agree with that?
I mean, they're very good movies. I am kind of surprised La Llorona got so high up there, but it was very good. So
yeah. So 12 Angry Men is kind of a unique movie in that it's set, for the most part, completely within a jury room. And so it's just 12 men, in this case, discussing the particulars of a case, which that shouldn't be super interesting. But it's actually ridiculously gripping, and you feel like you're unfolding a Rubik's Cube as the movie plays out, both about the jurors trying to figure out if the defendant is to blame, and with their individual personalities, backstories, and biases and how they unfold. So It's a really great time.
Agreed. I don't know. It was really amazing. It's crazy how something so simple could be riveting and also beautifully shot. Like, it was just really pretty, even though it's not like they went anywhere. It's not like the camera angles are super crazy or anything, but it was still really just visually good to look at as well, on top of what you mentioned about being intrigued by their verdict and how they come to the verdict, and also just learning about all these characters and how they interact.
La Llorona is a Guatemalan movie that takes place post attempted government-sponsored genocide of, I think, the Mayan people, which is a very real thing that they did. And this movie kind of takes that ground plane of truth and builds a almost revenge ghost story off of it, but it does so in a very sensitive yet at the same time punch to the gut kind of a way. Now, I should mention there is a similarly titled movie to La Llorona.
Is it also just La Llorona?
I think it's The Curse of La
The
Llorona.
Curse of La Llorona.
Based on what I've seen of it, it looks very Blumhouse. And if you don't know what that means, then this is the good one. So, Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, is a documentary about Mark Patton, the star of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, a movie that is both beloved by members of the LGBT community and reviled by members of the Nightmare on Elm Street fan club generally. So this movie sidesteps A Nightmare on Elm Street as a franchise and just kind of digs into this one very strange appendix of the series. And it goes places, man. It's a very emotional roller coaster featuring scummy screenwriters, the AIDS pandemic, the way that the film industry kind of chews up young actors and actresses and then leaves them on their own to deal with the fallout of something that they didn't even really understand. It's not like an easy watch, but it is fascinating, and it is a wonderful movie that gives you more of an appreciation for the talent behind A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Most of them.
Most of them.
Yes.
Yeah. Most of the talent and the movie itself. Like, we already really liked that movie, but I feel like I like it more now, also learning more about it and the people that were a part of it.
I totally agree. So there we go. That's our top 10. It's more than 10 because we had some ties. But yeah, we watched some good stuff this year.
Yeah.
What about you? What did you watch last year? Anything super stand out for you? We did rewatch some stuff. That list is going to be coming up in a future video for our favorite things we rewatched.
Is it all me?
Actually, it is. It mostly is, yes. But we'll get into that in the next episode. Yeah, so if you watch something great, leave it in the comments. We got a website. Who cares? This is an outro. You're not watching anymore.
Okay, bye.
Why am I? Blah, 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 blah.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. If you liked what you saw, give us a like. If you didn't, don't. Head on over to thehungrycreatures.com for more episodes, short films, or to sign up for our free magazine. Catchphrase.